Hi and welcome to the 11th EPP Congress of Young Farmers podcast, a kickoff series to one of the most influential gatherings in the EU shaping the future of European agriculture. My name is Mariana Correia and I will speak with political leaders and partners who help to turn ideas into policies and policies into action. This is where the conversation begins and where the future of farming starts to take shape. Thank you for joining us. So today my guest serves as a member of the European Parliament from the Farmer Citizens Movement from the Netherlands, and she's one of the co-organizers of this EPP Congress. Welcome, Jessika van Leeuwen, and thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here. So before we start with the hard questions, there's something about you that I think is very curious. So you were born in the Netherlands. You speak 6 languages, which is quite remarkable, but you dream in Spanish, right? So this is why, because you lived in Argentina, or because it's the language your brain prefers?
That's a good question. Well, I'm very happy to be here. So thank you very much for having me. I'm not sure, why it happens, but a lot of times when I recall my dreams later on, I remember that actually the language was in Spanish. And interestingly, I went into surgery a few years ago, and when I woke up from surgery, the only thing I could speak was Spanish. And it was in the Netherlands, so the nurses couldn't help me, and they had to do sign language with me because they didn't understand my Spanish. So the Spanish came back before the Dutch came back. I have no idea why that is, but
maybe because you love to be in Argentina.
Maybe it's my deep love for Argentina, indeed. Yes.
Okay, so let's start and dig and dive into what brings us here, this Congress, EPP Congress. So, Jessika, you didn't come from the politics from theory. You come from the field. You have a degree and a PhD in animal science. Do you remember the time when agriculture stopped being just a work and something that you wanted to fight for?
I think it never was just work for me because I don't come from an agricultural background. I don't have a farm. My parents didn't have a farm, but I always was very engaged with the agricultural sector for some reason. So that's also the reason why I studied animal science in Wageningen University. And I've always been fascinated by the general shared common values and passion that people all over the world have when they are in agriculture. So it doesn't matter whether you are in Vietnam, in Mexico, South Africa, France, the Netherlands. We all share this passion for agriculture, for food production. And that is something that I believe is very much worth fighting for. So when I realized that my voice was needed, I spoke up and I ended up in the parliament, yes.
So you are at the parliament since June 2024.
Yes.
How is the experience been?
Interesting, and I'm enjoying it very much. But of course, it's a very different world than my business life. I was in international agri-food business, traveling the whole world and working in that sector. And now I'm fighting for that very same sector. So that's a weird sensation. And it's very bureaucratic, obviously, in Brussels. But at the same time, you do see things change and mindset shifts. And there starts to become an understanding of why we are fighting for this agricultural industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, so building on that, you've been very outspoken about the need for farmers to be heard in Brussels. Do you feel the message it's landing?
That's a good question, of course, and it depends who you ask. Probably if the message is landing. Yes, I'm very outspoken because as Farmer Citizens Movement, this is the core of our movement. At the same time, we also have to be realistic because it's not the first time that people are outspoken about agriculture. Of course, my co-hosts some of them have been doing that also in the previous mandate, but their reality was that there was a majority over center-left in parliament, which tended not to favor the agricultural sector. So it has been a very tough fight for them. But now, since we have a shift in parliament and we have more a center-right majority, I feel that there are more people thinking alike right now. And it helps to be very outspoken because then some people that have not been so outspoken in the previous mandate all of a sudden realize, yes, but this is what I stand for as well. So the movement grows, if you understand what I mean. It's a little bit of a snowball effect. And we can see that now also with the amendments being approved in the Agricultural Committee and also in plenary, that we get, we have successes that were unthinkable in the previous mandate. So yes, the message is landing slowly, but we're getting there.
So farmers can be can rely on politicians, because they normally they always say politicians are there, we are here, we are different. So do you think it's starting to be different now?
I think they can rely on some politicians. Let's be a little bit realistic here. Not everyone is that outspoken, but yes, they have some good defenders in Parliament for their rights. And at the same time, the Euro Commissioner of Agriculture, Christoph Hansen, coming from an agricultural background himself, he also knows how to listen and what to listen to.
And also at the Parliament, you've said before that the EU policies often don't reach the reality on the ground. So what do you think is missing?
Common sense. Common sense is missing a lot of times. So we try to, and faith. I think maybe before common sense, it's actually faith in that people are good and want to do good, but we want to control everything. And we always believe that if we don't control it, there will be fraud or misuse of fundings. And we should actually give faith back to our farmers, that they know what they have to do. So faith in how to treat their animals, faith in how to treat their soils, faith in how to treat their crops. But we've been trying to over-control it in an attempt to, I don't know, to maybe do good, but it actually had an opposite effect. So I think we have to let go of this super control and put targets, realistic targets for farmers, but then leave it up to them how they reach it. So they either can go through, going to the left, to the right, whatever they choose, what they believe is right for their farm and what works for their farm, as long as they meet the target that we set.
Mm-hmm. So, but do you think that works, giving that freedom to farmers?
Yes, because then you give them back the sense of being owner of their business, being an entrepreneur, being able to have a freedom of choice. Because organic farming, for instance, is not for everyone. So it is a choice that somebody makes. It's not up to us to say, okay, 25% has to be, of all European farming has to be organic. No, you need to have that market driven, and it has to go with the way a farmer is, whether that goes for their farm or whether they want to follow a path of innovative solutions in order to reduce, for instance, their emissions.
Mm-hmm. But do you think being as so many member states with so many different interests, it will work? Because
exactly, it will work, because now we're trying to make a one-size-fits-all approach for all the member states with all these rules that we have created. But if we give more freedom, then of course in member states it will be different, because the reality on the ground is really different. As long as targets are met, they can choose how to meet those targets. Mm-hmm. So I really believe it works better than trying to get this one-size-fits-all, because it doesn't fit.
Okay, very well. So let's look ahead for a moment. So in 10 or 15 years, what kind of agriculture do you want for Europe? And what do you think has to absolutely needs to stay in the picture?
That's a good one. I think the most important one is that we give a sense of appreciation back to the farmers, that they feel that they are actually appreciated for what they're doing. So we let them know that there is a reward. So there needs to be a fair remuneration for farmers. So I think that is a very complicated one. We have to strengthen the position of farmers in the whole production chain. And we made a very big step forward last week in the plenary session in Strasbourg when we voted on the report on strengthening their position. And at the same time, I believe we have to really, really look into generational renewal. Because if you look at the average age of a farmer in Europe, it's relatively old. I don't want to say too old because I don't want to offend anybody, but we really need to make agriculture more attractive for young farmers again.
And how can we do that?
How can we do that? Well, it starts with the appreciation. So it starts with making farming, and I think it's the most beautiful job in the world, But if society doesn't tell you that it's good what you're doing, you start to feel that you're not wanted. So you need to feel wanted, but at the same time, we need to make it easier for them to access land, to have financial support, and in that sense, grow their business.
Because most of the time they also complain about that the lower income, right? So it's not seen as a professional for the future, or
exactly.
You can so raise your family because there's no enough money for it.
I talk to many parents that say, I hope my son is not taking over the farm, or I hope my daughter is not going into farming because there's not decent money in it. But we have to understand that without farming, we have no food. So what are we going to do? Are we then going to depend on other continents and import all our food? Or are we going to produce it ourselves? Because we have the highest quality standards in Europe. So we have the best food being produced in Europe, and we're all letting it go to waste if we don't take action.
Mm-hmm. So now, Jessika, let's talk about a little bit of the Congress itself. You are one of the organizers of this EPP Congress. What was the main reason you wanted to be involved from the beginning?
I'm a member of the Farmers Citizens Movement. So as soon as I found out that there is this young EPP Young Farmers Congress, this is us. I mean, as Farmers Citizens Movement, this is what we do in essence. So I asked kindly if I could participate in the organization, because this is very core to our feeling and what as a party we stand for. So I believe it's very, very important to have young farmers engaged. But what I really like is the possibility they have to connect with other young farmers throughout Europe and talk to each other and hopefully learn from each other how one overcame a certain challenge, for instance. And maybe that is a solution that they can take back home and works for them as well.
Brainstorming, it's important in this kind of situations. Exchange of experiences also.
The networking and what might follow from there. So hopefully there's people that connect with each other and say, hey, I would like to see how it is done in your farm. And that they go and visit each other and their network grows. Because it used to be very much every member state fighting for their own little piece. And I do believe that doesn't work anymore. I think we have to unite as an agricultural sector and fight together for what we are worth and to receive for what we are worth, but also to recognize that it's different in all the unique varieties that we have in member states. There's not a right or wrong. It's just different, and embrace that and learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. Still, it will be very difficult because now with the new agreements that with Mercosur and other
countries and continents definitely.
It's going to be more difficult for our products to be in the market, right?
It might be difficult, especially if we are not applying the same standards, the way we produce over here, to what is allowed to come in at a lower tariff. And that is definitely an issue when we're talking, for instance, Mercosur, because there are certain things that you cannot control. And we know that things are different over there. So the way, and I mean, I lived there for almost 10 years in South America. So I know exactly what I'm talking about when I discuss this. For instance, the use of antibiotics on farms is not as controlled as it is with us, preventive use of antibiotics. So that gives an advantage, a production advantage for those farmers. But at the same time, it's a threat for our public health in Europe, because this is how we import also resistant bacteria back into Europe. So that's a big concern, not only from our food security and the unfair competition that comes from it, but also from public safety.
So it's another issue and another concern for European farmers.
Yes, it is.
So it's going to be a difficult mandate for you.
I am fighting for it. Yes, that's what. That's the only thing I can do, as much as I can.
So again, looking at this edition, what can be achieved there? What's the one change you hope to see that you hope this gather can spark?
I think, as I mentioned before, the awareness that we have to do it together, that it's not us against them. It is all of us European farmers united together. That is what I hope that can spark. Mm-hmm. And secondly, that they realize that there are people inside Parliament really fighting for what they need as well. They're not alone. There are people trying their best to make sure that we get good policies.
So when someone comes to you and to speak about their problems. Normally, what kind of concerns are the most that they raise the most?
Right now, of course, it's the plans of the Commission regarding the multi-annual financial framework, because it reduces tremendously the amount of money that we get for the common agricultural policy. And that is concerning especially farmers a lot, because if we get less money, does it mean that I also have less money in my pocket in the end of the day? That is a big concern, of course. And then we have all this legislation. The problem is that there's a lot of blame shifting. So a lot of time, especially in the Netherlands, the agricultural sector takes the blame for almost everything that is wrong in the environment. Well, actually, science proves that the rapid increase of people in big cities contribute largely to water quality, but always the blame is on agriculture. That is a difficult one.
So finally, before we finish our conversation, because the time flies, what message do you like to give to those young farmers that are starting to this field right now?
It is interesting because 2 weeks ago I was milking dairy cows together with a young girl, a young farmer's daughter, Janne, and I asked her, when you talk to because she's studying agriculture, and I asked her, when you talk to your fellow students, what are their concerns? Are they worried about the future? And she says, yes, we are worried, but our dream is bigger than our worry. We want to take over our parents' farm. So this is so well embedded in the DNA maybe of farmers. They want to continue regardless. So farmers are flexible. They are able to make changes and to accommodate to whatever we think we consider in Brussels. But we have to be considerate, because it needs to be applicable, it needs to be manageable, and it needs to deliver a financial framework that helps them feed their families and raise a new generation of farmers.
But negotiations are starting to be difficult, right?
Negotiations on what?
For the next multi-financial framework and for the PAC, for the CAP policy.
Well, the first proposal was not very well received. That is true. But the negotiations, of course, don't end here. And I believe we, not only the Agricultural Committee, but other committees like the Regi Committee as well, expressed very loudly their concerns on this proposal. And we'll see what the response of the Commission will be. But we will continue to resist, of course.
Thank you, Jessika. So before we end up our conversation, I would like to propose something more light, which is some this or that questions. No explanation needed. If you accept the challenge, let's do it.
Fair enough. It will be difficult without explanation, though.
Just quick questions, flash questions, and we end up our conversation here. So let's start. So meat or fish?
Meat.
Red or white wine?
Red.
Europe or Latin America?
Europe.
Parliament debate or a field visit?
Field visit.
Tractor or train to Brussels?
Tractor.
Dreaming in Spanish or arguing in Dutch?
I would pick dreaming in Spanish, but I give you an explanation.
Please.
Because I don't believe in arguing. I didn't join politics to polarize the debate. I joined politics to find common ground between, the different opinions, the different points of view. So I rather dream in Spanish than argue in Dutch.
That's a very brilliant closing. Thank you very much, Jessika, for your time here with us, and good luck for the Congress. Hope everything goes well. And thank you for listening. And don't forget that the Congress takes place on the 19th of November in Brussels at the European Parliament. You can follow all updates on the social media and register if you would like to attend. Have a great day. See you soon.